back. I'd like to reconvene this meeting of the Property Tax Division. Okay, Chair Lislegard, do you have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I guess I would like to move House File 1377 for possible inclusion into the tax omnibus bill.
Great, thank you. Please continue with your overview.
Okay, so to the committee members, obviously for the last 4 weeks, we kind of took a deep dive and we peeled back the onion of some of the challenges facing our communities and with property taxes. And I think as we begin, I'm going to go through the issues and then I'm going to talk about the proposal. And then if I could have Mr. Swanson go through the bill section by section. So. As we discussed earlier, that Minnesota is not investing in the state-local partnership at the same level it did for decades. This results in higher property taxes and reduces services at all local levels. Property tax valuations for residential homeowners jumped 17.6% in 2022. That paired with mostly stringent commercial and stagnant valuations, rising levies putting many Minnesota families in a bind. In 2002, local government aid represented 4.1% of the state budget. Let me repeat that. In 2002, local government aid represented 4.1%, and it currently just represents 2.1%. County program aid was about 2% and is now just 1%. Cities and counties are reliant on property tax to raise revenue for their levy. The property tax, this type of tax, is the least ability to pay. Cities and counties, local governments provide many services on behalf of our state. Over these many duties that are expanded due to us, adding new work and complexity for local governments while also increasing the cost of services on property taxpayers. Inflation has eroded the buying power of local government aid and county program aid over the last 20 years. And as we all know, in the last year and a half, that has been expedited. While the cost of construction, salaries, and other costs have increased, local government aid and CPA has not. We all know that the state has a historic surplus, but counties and cities, they don't. If the state doesn't invest in the cities and the counties, these numbers and trends are only going to continue. So the bill and the proposal before you will increase annually local government aid and county program aid by $150 million each. You know, that's going to provide services, and it's going to reduce taxes, and it's going to relieve the burden that we are putting on the counties, the cities, and the taxpayers. This proposal will update the LGA formula to better address property tax inequities across the state of Minnesota, regardless of the zip code, so we can provide quality public service while restraining property taxes. By increasing aid to cities and counties, we can make sure providing essential services and addressing property tax rise is done on the front end. So counties and cities are our governing partners for the state, and this proposal helps hold up our end of the bargain. I should state that, you got Greater Minnesota and you have the metro area. Make no mistake about it, that 66% of all money generated in the state of Minnesota comes from the 7-county metro. If you look at your packet right now, that 66% of all money that we're going to be allocating through local government aid goes to Greater Minnesota. The LGA formula, at the request of the legislature, the League of Minnesota Cities, Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, Metro Cities, the Minnesota Association of Small Cities worked with nonpartisan legislative staff as well as staff from the Department of Revenue to analyze formula factors for measuring city needs. The last formula update was enacted in 2013. Typically, LGA formulas undergo modifications every 10 years as a means of ensuring factors are valid in predicting need. Some factors were maintained while others were modified, depending on their statistical ability to reflect and anticipate variation in city needs. The update to the formula better reflects current levels of need and prevent more cities from falling off. So before I turn it over to Jared, this is one of the levers that is extremely important that we need to take a serious look at. As a former mayor and a city councilor, as the former president of RAMS, working with communities all across northeast Minnesota, you're going to hear from one of my mayors in my district how important local government aid is. You know, a fire truck in Edina costs the same as it does in Aurora, Minnesota, but not everybody has the same means. That's what this local government aid and county municipal aid is going to do. Make no mistake about it, that the counties, they provide a lot of services on the behalf of the state of Minnesota, but yet we're not fully funding them. To think 20 years ago, that we stopped increasing it to the level where we're only half of what we were, according to the state budget. To me, this is one of the first steps and the biggest steps that we can do as a body in the state of Minnesota to move this forward. So with that, Madam Chair, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Swanson to walk through the bill step by step.
Okay. Mr. Swanson.
Madam Chair and members, as Chair Lislegard said, I'm going to walk through each section of House File 1377. Members in their packets should have a House Research Bill Summary. It looks like this. It may be helpful to follow along with that as I walk through each of these sections. So as Chair Lislegard said, that there are sort of three primary changes in this bill. The bill updates the need factors within the LGA formula. The bill increases the local government aid and county program aid appropriations by $150 million. And lastly, there is an annual indexing of both of those appropriations within the bill. The first page contains some highlights of all of the changes within the bill, but at the bottom of that first page, there's a table that compares the current law need factors for each of the three different types of cities within the LGA program, and then has a second column that has the proposed need factors for each of those groups under the bill. As we go through these, it's important to remember sort of how the LGA calculation works. I know we covered this a couple of weeks ago in committee, but it's good to keep in mind that a city's aid is based off of its unmet need. And unmet need for a city is calculated as the city's need, determined by the LGA formula, minus the city's ability to pay. So what House File 1377 would do is update the way that need is calculated for each of the cities. The other features of the LGA calculation are left unchanged largely within the bill. So looking at the table on the first page, I'll just highlight the need factor changes for each city group. So small cities, under current law, need is calculated as the population within the city over 100, and then there's a cap, a per capita cap in need for small cities under current law. The bill would change that need factor for small cities to the logarithm of the population, and then it would remove that cap, per capita cap on need for small cities. For medium-sized cities, two of the three current law need factors would remain in place, so the percentage of housing stock built before 1940 and the peak population decline within the city would both remain need factors. But the average household size would be changed to the percentage of the tax base within the city that's classified as commercial, industrial, or utility property. And then lastly, for the large cities, under the bill, again, the pre-40 housing percentage would remain a need factor. But the remaining two current law need factors would be removed, and three additional need factors would be added to the large city formula, and that would be the percentage of the population in the city age 65 or older, the percentage of the tax base within the city classified as commercial, industrial, or utility property, and then the peak population decline within the city. So moving on to page 2 of the summary, I'll just start going through each of these sections individually. Section 1 of the bill defines population age 65 and older for the purposes of the LGA formula. This is used to calculate the city age index in Section 4, and this is a new factor within the large city need formula. Section 2 of the bill defines transformed population. Again, this is a new need factor, and it is a need factor for the small cities within the need formula. Section 3, this has one of those 3 primary changes that I highlighted initially. This is where you can see the new need formulas for each of the 3 different city types. Chair Lislegard kind of mentioned this in his introduction, that the factors that are actually used in each of these formulas were developed as part of an effort between House and Senate nonpartisan staff and city groups a little over a year ago. These need factors were actually carried in a bill in 2022 by Representative Joachim, House File 4064. So the factors themselves have not changed under this bill, but what has changed are the other numbers that you can see in the equations in the summary for Section 3. So what occurred in the preparation for House File 1377 is that the regression models that were developed last year to determine the need factors were run on updated data. So basically the data that get used to determine the numbers within these formulas was updated a year, just to reflect that we had advanced a year since the last bill had been written, and it changed some of these coefficients. So the numbers in the Section 3 that you see would be different than the bill that we heard last year. Section 4 of the bill defines the city age index for the purposes of the formula. Again, this is a new need factor for large cities. And Section 5 defines the commercial industrial utility percentage, and this is a new need factor for both the medium and large city need formulas. Section 6 of the bill changes the definition within the county program aid statute. And this is simply done because the definition for population age 65 or older is actually a new definition in Section 1 of the bill. This section would not change how county program aid is calculated. It is simply there just to kind of prevent a redundancy within Chapter 477A. So rather than having that definition appear twice within the chapter, it just appears once in Section 1 of the bill. And then that definition gets referenced in Section 6. So it's really just a conforming change related to Section 1. Sections 7 and 8 remove references to certified aid adjustments. So within the LGA program, historically, there have been times where the legislature provides individual cities with sort of an off-formula bump or an off-formula increase to their local government aid. Currently, there's only one city that's receiving one of these off-formula bumps, and that's the city of Mahnomen. They currently receive an additional $160,000 a year in LGA. House File 1377 would remove these certified aid adjustments from the LGA formula. The city of Mahnomen would still receive the same amount of money, and that would be made in a separate aid payment in Section 12. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that works when we get to that section. But Section 7 and 8 are really just conforming changes related to the removal of certified aid adjustments from the local government aid calculation. Section 9 of the bill increases the LGA appropriation by $150 million annually. This section also contains a reference that would increase this amount annually, and that increase is determined in Section 11 of the bill. Section 10 would increase the county program aid appropriation by $150 million annually. Again, that overall aid amount would be indexed as determined in Section 11. Section 11 of the bill summary actually has a typo. So if members want to see how this inflation adjustment is calculated, you can see the sort of the full calculation on line 7.19 of the bill. But basically, the percent change in the LGA and the county program aid overall appropriations would be equal to the percentage change in inflation in an inflation measure in the previous year, plus the percentage change in total statewide city population. And then this annual change would sort of have a minimum amount and a maximum amount. It could change from one year to the next. So the appropriations for LGA and CPA would need to increase by at least 2.5% each year. but would not be able to increase by more than 5%. Sections 12 and 13 get back to that elimination of certified aid adjustments. So as I mentioned, the city of Mahnomen is the only city currently receiving this sort of off-formula bump in LGA each year, and the amount is $160,000. In addition to that, there's also a session law that distributes aid to the Mahnomen County, the city of Mahnomen, and the Mahnomen School District. So what Section 12 and 13 would do was take sort of both of these payments, two separate payments to the city of Mahnomen, one to the county and one to the school district, and it would codify into statute an appropriation of equal amount to each of those jurisdictions. So rather than having the authorizations for these payments, one within the LGA formula and the others within this session law, it would codify all of these payments. Each jurisdiction would still receive the same amount of money. It's just the authorization for those payments would be located in Chapter 477A. Lastly, Section 14 is the repealer. So this removes some sections from statute. So the need factors that are no longer used within the formula get repealed under this section. So the percentage of housing stock built between 1940 and 1970, household size, jobs per capita, all of those factors that were on the table on the first page of the summary that are no longer needed in the formula would be repealed here. The section also repeals the definition of sparsity adjustments. So there's another feature within the LGA formula that provides sort of a higher need calculation for cities that have low population density. Those would be removed under the bill. And the section also repeals the certified aid adjustments, as I mentioned earlier. And again, that's just the city of Mahnomen that's receiving one of these, and they'd receive the same amount of money under a separate aid payment in Section 12. Madam Chair, that concludes the overview of the bill. I would also just note to members that there are city-by-city runs for the LGA changes in the bill in your packet, and there's also county-by-county runs that show the effects of the increased county program aid amount in the bill as well.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. So all of those runs are in the member packets, and next we are going to move to witness testimony. So first on my list, I have Mayor Cuffey from Virginia, Minnesota. Please state your name and your organization for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Larry, and members of the committee. My name is Larry Cuffey Jr. I'm the mayor of the city of Virginia, Minnesota, and I want to thank you for allowing us to testify on behalf of this bill today, and a big thanks to Representative Lislegard for sponsoring this bill. I know that we have a lot of other testifiers, so I will try to be as brief as I can. The city of Virginia is unique in a city who receives a significant amount of local government aid moving forward. Local government aid for the city of Virginia is crucial for our ability to provide needed core public service for our community. That's police, fire, public works projects, primarily in the areas of our ability to provide the core services. And to give you an example of what local government has done, we had to go it alone on a new water sewage treatment plant. And we received a PFA loan at $19.2 million, and we're paying on that. But this local government aid that we're receiving and the increase that you're asking for is going to be very helpful for us in the future because we have major projects moving forward. First, the new public safety building that's being constructed in Virginia. We're asking for some additional money and a little later on a testimony, another bill. But there's some significant increased costs in that. We've chosen an area that will cover blight remediation and neighborhood revitalization, and part of this money for LGA will help move forward with that project. The city of Virginia has required all businesses, for exception of the downtown businesses, and all residents in the city of Virginia of 8,452 population, a significant amount of residents, they have been required to convert from a steam heating system to a natural gas system. All the infrastructure underneath is completely crumbling. We use government aid to help with that, and that's an ongoing expense. Without local government aid and this increase moving forward, we wouldn't be able to do that. In order to us to fix our streets, we can't repair our streets until we are able to get the infrastructure out of there. So we have a 5-year street improvement program, and the assessments to the community is going to be astronomical. Local government will help offset those costs. The The economic driver for our community in northeast Minnesota is mining. Mining, as you probably already know, they do not pay property taxes. They pay production tax in lieu of property taxes. So we don't get that big property tax base from the mining companies. And so that's the economic driver for us. We don't have a strong business base. We are a landlocked community. So this local government has been a godsend for us. It actually has assisted us in trying to survive. Without local government and without this increase, we're going to have to cut our services. There's no question about that. And if we don't have any local government, we're just going to be a shell of our former self, and we'll have to do some significant layoffs. And so this bill that's being proposed by Representative Lislegard is going to help us significantly. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today, and I would stand for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Cuffey. So we are going to hold the member discussion for the end of the bill presentation. But thanks for your presentation. And up next, we have Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire from Ramsey County.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Great. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and your organization for the record.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mary Jo McGuire. I'm a Ramsey County Commissioner. And for those of you that may not know, I used to serve in this body. I was 14 years in the House and 2 in the Senate. So I totally understand all the tough decisions you have to make and really appreciate your work. In fact, we have many former legislators that are now in county boards, and so we all appreciate your work and know the decisions that you're making. I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for chairing this committee, and especially to you, Chair Lislegard, for authoring this amazing bill that we all need so much. So I just want to say that this is historic, that we have so many of us that are on board on this, and with this amount, the amount of dollars here, that we've got cities and counties all working for LGA and CPA, and we couldn't be more excited about this opportunity. I am the current Association of Minnesota Counties president, and so we represent all 87 counties in the state of Minnesota. And so, you know, there's divisiveness all around, but we have all 87 counties on board on this one. We actually have a lot of issues that all counties agree on. This is one of our top issues, is county program aid. And so we have had this as one of our top issues for the last 10 years. In fact, several years ago, we had every county board that passed a resolution in support of county program aid. So from Kitson to Moore, from Cook to Rock, Ramsey to Dakota, we agree that this is a huge priority, and we really need this funding to benefit all of our residents and all of our taxpayers. In fact, this is such an important issue. We have commissioners from all over the state here today to help us with that. I'm going to start with our St. Louis County commissioners, Paul McDonald, Annie Harala, and Keith Nelson are in the group. We've got Stearns County Commissioner Joe Persky and Terrell Clark. We've got Dakota County Commissioner Lori Halverson. We've got Washington County Commissioner Stan Karwoski. And you're going to be hearing from Sheila Cascade, Olmsted County Commissioner, and Neil Galsrud, Cass County, later on. And then we also have Bobby Deschamps from he's the chair of the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. He's a former county commissioner, but he's here on behalf of the tribe, which are also going to benefit from this bill. So we have a lot of, we have so many people that care about this bill, and we're here today to support it and appreciate all of your work. I just want to give you an example of my county. I am from Ramsey County, and that's an urban county here. And we generally take our budget, and then we subtract the CPA that we get, and then the rest of it is on our property taxpayers. This is work that when we get CPA money, it's a direct property tax relief. So in 2021-22, our increase was 4.5, and if we didn't get CPA, it would have been 10.5. So this is direct help to our residents. In fact, we're to do the work that we're required to do from the state, which we appreciate. I mean, we don't mind doing this work, but we just need the resources to be able to do it. And the only other recourse we have if we don't get CPA is that we tax the very people that we're trying to help. You know, we're trying to keep them, one of our big issues is housing and affordable housing and home, and our people experiencing homelessness. We can't tax them anymore because we're trying to keep them in their houses. So we consider ourselves intergovernmental partners with all of you. We are here to implement what the state, you know, asks us to do. We are happy to be partners with you, but we really do need the resources to do this. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking this bill on, for all of your support, and I'm going to let other people testify as well. But just we really appreciate working with you on this. So you'll get lots of support from all of your county commissioners in the state. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. And thank you for, stepping to lead from the county side. Also, appreciate you shouting out all the other commissioners here. I'm sorry we don't have time to, allow all of you guys to share your testimonies, but really do appreciate your presence here and your support of this bill. Up next, I have Mr. Matt Stemwettle. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and your organization for the record.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Matt Stemwettle. I'm the city manager of the city of Coon Rapids. I am also the president of Metro Cities, which represents most of the cities in the 7-county metro area. So first, I want to thank you for allowing me to testify today. Thank you, Chair Lislegard, for sponsoring this legislation. Metro Cities feels that this legislation is deeply important. Certainly, we've been a partner at the table in helping create the formula changes and making those recommendations to this body. So we are very appreciative of that. And so beyond my support from the Metro City side, I think I can give you a little flavor of how local government aid impacts cities in the metro area, as Coon Rapids has been a recipient of LGA since the more recent formula change, now almost 10 years ago, and has needed that for a lot of reasons. Primarily, Coon Rapids is a mostly developed community. It's got an aging housing stock, a aging population base, diversifying population base, and so we've found that the stressors on our public safety services have been significant over the last 10 years or so and beyond. And to give you an example of that, our fire calls for EMS services have increased over 43% in the last 10 years. And a lot of that has to do with the aging population we have in Coon Rapids and the services that they require. So our firefighters respond as first responders and render that aid until an ambulance can get there. Like a lot of other older suburbs, Coon Rapids is not property tax wealthy relative to many growing communities in the metro area, and has many of the characteristics that you would suspect an older community would have, to include, as I mentioned, sort of that aging population, aging infrastructure, higher needs for public safety, and so forth. Our recent history with LGA isn't necessarily a positive one, in the sense that in 2022, we received $1.2 million in LGA, nearly $1.2 million. However, under the current law, due to some outdated components with the formula, the lack of increase to the funding, we've actually gone from $1.2 million down to zero for 2023, which is a pretty significant impact that Coon Rapids isn't alone in experiencing. I know that cities of Brooklyn Park, Centerville, I believe, and some others have experienced those rapid drop-offs in LGA in recent years. And as the commissioner just recently noted, that but for LGA, the only really lever we have is property tax. So we've had to rely on that more heavily in 2023, certainly in a time where there are other stressors on city budgets like labor challenges, increasing wages, and of course, inflation. So as we go forward with that in Coon Rapids, we see a heavier shift then to that residential property tax because, as was mentioned earlier, commercial industrial property tax values aren't increasing the same amount relative to those property tax owners. And in a community where much of your housing stock is older and occupied by senior residents, they are really paying for that gap in LGA that we experienced here in this past year. The other thing that affected us in 2023 with the loss of LGA is we had a long-term public safety staffing plan that we had to defer into future years because we couldn't afford to add new positions on in 2023 given that $1.2 million in revenue loss. So without the support of local government aid, the other local challenges coupled with the rising costs of things generally will force additional pressures onto that property tax at a time when many cities just aren't able to afford that. So with that, local governments depend on the strong relationship with the state, and we appreciate you all taking this under consideration and we look forward to enhancing that partnership. So again, thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any later on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stemwedel. Next, Commissioner Kiskaden. Great. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and your organization for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Sheila Kiskaden. I'm an Olmsted County Commissioner, and I'm grateful to Representative Lislegard for offering this bill and for bringing the cities and the counties together in one voice to talk about what the need is and why this solution is going to satisfy 87 counties. And what do we have? 844 cities across the state of Minnesota. I'm a county commissioner from Olmsted County. Rochester is our county seat. We are a regional center. But as an active member of the Association of Minnesota Counties, I've come to really understand the differences between counties, where we have counties of 4,000, we have counties of 10,000, we have counties like mine of 166, or let's think about Hennepin and Ramsey. And what unites us is that what you expect of us in terms of being your partners in delivery of services. So as people go to work every day, as they go to school, as our vulnerable adults, as our children in need of support for child protection reasons, corrections, public safety, environmental stewardship. These are things that you expect the county to be there and to do the work in partnership with the state of Minnesota. We're one of the few states across the country that has a state-administered, locally delivered human services system. And so as we look at how you put in policies in place to protect our residents, the work to do that comes to the county, and we are glad to do it, and we are happy that we have the ability to really tailor services in some ways to our own population's needs. But at the same time, your budget issues over the years have led to the fact that the funding to fund those services has not kept up with the growth of the services or the mandates that you have put on counties. Not complaining about mandates, but we are trying to have equity across the state in access to service. And if we're going to have equity, health equity, social equity, then we also have to have capacity at the local level to meet those needs. So I've worked for Olmsted County as a staffer way back in the 80s. I've watched the changes over time as the state's support for local services has eroded, not with any ill will, but with a lot of budget pressures and a lot of things that have happened. So you've already heard from your chairman that it used to be 2% of your budget went to counties to support the services you've asked us to do. Now we're at 1%. In my own county, just 10 years ago, 14% of our levy, you had a levy impact of 14%. Now now it's down to 6% for county program aid. So what do? Well, are we going to cut services to people? Are we going to increase property taxes? We do what most counties do. We look at our budget. We look at our forecast. We look at how we can hold the line on costs, and ultimately we say how much county program aid are we going to get, and then how much levy do we have to lead. And so that's a formula that's being used simply by many, many counties all across the state of Minnesota. So, we are ever more reliant on property taxes. And just as you heard from the mayor of Coon Rapids, being reliant on property taxes hurts the people you often are most focused on trying to help. Hurts our fixed income elders, our lowest income folks that are having a hard time affording housing to begin with. And then let's talk about what's happened with housing. I'm sure my community used to be more affordable than the metro area. We are no longer that much more affordable than the metro area. We know home values have gone up dramatically in the last few years. And so what's happening on the market value of housing goes up, and some of the extensions haven't kept pace, then the homeowner is paying more of that property tax levy than in the past. And we're having a net negative impact on home ownership because of not having the capacity to provide the services that the county program aid normally had helped to subsidize or help pay for. So we really appreciate your leadership in putting this together. We appreciate the fact that you have had an opportunity to get cities and counties together with one voice, that we think this is a solution that will really meet our needs. And we strongly support this proposal and urge you to do so as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Next, I have Mayor John Hawkinson. Great. Please state your name and your organization for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is John Hawkinson. I'm representing the city of Olivia and also representing small cities all across the state of Minnesota today. Olivia is a city of about 2,400 folks, and I'm just here to testify to you all about the importance of the impact of LGA and the proposed bill here. First of all, there are over 700 cities in the state of Minnesota with populations of less than 5,000 people. And this bill is going to help the vast majority of them. For small cities, LGA is a critical tool that allows us to provide public safety, safe streets, drinking water, and wastewater services that our residents and businesses rely on. LGA helps make for thriving and strong communities in every corner of the state. This legislation would help the smallest of cities. On average, small cities would see a significant increase to LGA. Not only does this help our cities with much needed services, it is a direct way to keep local property taxes down. At a time when inflation has been putting a squeeze on local government, this new LGA formula and much needed funds would go a long ways to helping our small cities provide essential services and growth opportunities throughout the state. Again, want to thank everybody involved here in putting this together. Hopefully we can bear some fruit for small cities across Minnesota.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. So last on my list, I have Commissioner Galswick. Please state your name and your organization for the record, and also let me know if I mispronounced that.
You did a really good job. Galswick. Madam Chair, members of the House Property Tax Division, and Representative Lislegard, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue today. My name is Neil Galswick. I'm a Cass County Commissioner. I also serve on the Executive Committee of the Association of Minnesota Counties, currently as their first Vice President. In Cass County, my fellow county commissioners and I work hard to keep our local property tax levies as low as possible, while at the same time delivering quality service to our constituents. Increased local expectations and additional state mandates that often seem to arrive without the commensurate funding needed to provide those services have made that task difficult. But, like our peers in Minnesota's 86 other counties, we do our best. Now, keeping levies low isn't as simple as not hiring new staff, not building new buildings, or expanding services or adding programs. In Minnesota, as you've heard, counties are legislative subdivisions of the state, and as such, we are expected to provide and deliver services on behalf of the state as required by legislative statute or administrative rule. Now, whether or not the state fully funds, partially funds, or, as in some cases, neglects to fund a specific mandate, your counties are still expected to do your bidding, to provide the service, and to figure out a way to pay the cost. And in most cases, that figuring it out involves raising our local property taxes. County program aid is local tax relief. County program aid mitigates unfunded state mandates and helps keep our property taxes at a reasonable and locally acceptable level. It truly is the layer of state support that offsets what would otherwise be large and likely unacceptable and unsustainable property tax increases. I'd like to provide you with an example of how county program aid has fallen short in my home county. In 2002, county program aid for Cass County was roughly $1,318,000. Last year, 20 years later, Cass County received approximately $1,359,000 in CPA. So let me emphasize that fact. After 20 years, our county program aid is almost exactly where it was in actual dollars in 2002, and this does not count for inflation, population growth, increases in county needs, or additional state mandates. In Cass County, CPA is a vital resource in keeping our levies under control, while at the same time helping us deliver services across a 2,000 square mile county where almost half of our land is exempt from local property taxes. In Cass County, we don't increase our budget to meet our expected program aid. To the contrary, we set our budget based on needs, expectations, and mandates, and then when the bottom line is in place, we use county program aid to reduce that levy. In 2022, county program aid reduced our $24 million levy by 5.65%. And that, committee members, is how CPA spells property tax relief. And our story is not unique. And some Minnesota counties have it worse. In Lac-Qui-Parle, in 2002, they received $738,000 in county program aid, which at that time was equal to 32% of their levy. By 2017, county program aid had shrunk to a mere 2% of their levy. Now, I understand that their situation has improved somewhat in the intervening years, but I have no doubt that Lac-Qui-Parle, like Cass, and like your 85 other Minnesota counties, are all still significantly behind where we were in 2002. We're thankful for and appreciative of the recent investments the legislature has made in local government aid and county program aid, and we're here today to urge you to continue that good work. It's time, we believe, for the state to step up and shoulder its share of the load. We are your partners, and we're asking you to make us whole. Help us, help you. We will do the work you expect of us. Please provide us with the means to do so. We appreciate your time and service and hope that this committee will act to fully fund county programming. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Galswick. And also, thank you to all of the witnesses today for being our government partners. I will move to member discussion next, unless, yeah, we'll just move to member discussion next. Great. Oh, okay. Lead Quam.
At what point are we going to start discussing the amendments? I'm trying to better understand how this is going.
So I thank you for the question, Lead Quam. For clarity, during the member discussion portion, we are going to move to a couple amendments that were submitted, and so this would be the proper time, Lead Quam, to offer them. Do you have an amendment you'd like to offer, Lead Quam?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was anticipating that there was an order in which the chair was doing those, but I will offer the A1, so maybe we can go numeric.
Yeah, I have to find my amendments. Okay, so we're moving on to the A1 amendment. This should be in everyone's packets. Yes. Lead Quam, do you want to give an overview of the amendment?
Madam Chair, I would move that we adopt the A1 amendment. And this amendment, since it's about a 30% increase, actually a billion, well, between all of the stuff, it's $1 billion expenditure, but it's about a 30% increase of the dollars that are going to be in there. So the amendment is to, for a 2-year period, limit the levies so that the citizens would notice the effect on the property taxes, because the testifiers have been saying by not increasing, we've been burdening our taxpayers. And I think the nice thing to do is say, we're increasing it, and now the taxpayers will not be burdened for 2 years because the state is stepping up.
Okay, is there discussion on the amendment? Chair Lislegard.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and to Representative Quam. While I appreciate the intent to address the property tax, your amendment, increasing the local government aid and county program aid will help, them better get things under control. But for us to limit their ability to make those decisions locally, I'm just not there. So I would recommend to the committee to vote no on this amendment.
Is there further discussion? Representative Anderson?
No.
Or is it, sorry, Quam, I couldn't see.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And I'm disappointed that the bill before us is inadequate to take care of the problems that were stated, that the property taxes have been shifted because we're not stepping up, $1 billion according to the, information we've got in our packet. So that, is the chair saying that this bill is not adequate to take care of the situation, that it's deficient in covering the issue that the testifiers have been speaking to?
Representative Quam, are you addressing a question to Chair Lislegard?
Through the chair, yes.
Chair Lislegard, would you like to answer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Representative Quam, well, again, while I appreciate your intent, I'm from Greater Minnesota, as are you. I would continue to increase local government aid and county municipal aid to assist them in lowering property taxes. But I am not going to sit here and put a mandate on counties and cities to tell them that they can't raise the levy. If we do our job and we continue to invest and we put this escalator in with the inflation, then we are going to be doing our part as a state with our partners in the city and the county. So again, while I appreciate you wanting to put a cap on the cities and the counties, I'm not there. I believe that they have boards elected locally, and they can make that decision. It's our responsibility to do that. And furthermore, as you well know, that the state of Minnesota does not tax residential, right? We are commercial and industrial, and that is for the cities and the counties and the school districts to make those determinations. Our job is to give them the tools and the resources with the levers that we have to ease that burden on the taxpayers.
Okay, so I normally give the author of the amendment the last word, but I see Representative Hollins wanted to also say something, so I'm going to go to her before we proceed with the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I apologize for stepping on your toes, Chair Lislegard. I would just like to say, this bill is doing a lot of good work. And believe me, Representative Plum, I don't like levies any more than anybody else does, right? My property taxes have gone up 17% this year. But the reality is what we get out of this change is not enough to cover what we need to do in St. Paul or Ramsey County. And I know that. And I don't think you would actually like to see a bill that does enough to cover what we need in Ramsey County and St. Paul. I have a feeling you would definitely vote against that. So because of that, we need to be able to allow cities and counties to create these levies when they need them to cover all the services that we need to provide to our citizens. So thank you.
Great. And next we have Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, as someone who served on a city council for 9 years and appreciating what's going on in cities right now where with the large increases we're seeing in the levies because of the stress that cities are under, no city council member ever wants the levy to be any higher than it absolutely has to be. But that's going to vary by city. Obviously St. Paul is in a very dire situation right now, and I just don't think it makes sense to do a blanket levy cap across all cities when every city's situation is different.
Okay, thank you, Representative Elkins. Is there further discussion? All right, so I'll go back to Lead Quam to close out the discussion on Amendment A1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the Ramsey County statement, that I believe that, was it Hennepin and Ramsey are the only two that are at 58% or greater. So I did notice that they are the two getting the biggest increase. Most are right around 57, about, except for I think there's maybe one or two that are lower than the 56, 57 range. I just am, like all of you, there have been so many people upset with the property tax increases into the double digits, and some, 20, 30%. And that, maybe I'm behind the times thinking $1 billion is a substantial effect. And, maybe I have more confidence in the, the $1 billion and this increase and help in the bill is adequate. But, I'm disappointed that the author doesn't think his bill is adequate enough to really address what we've been hearing as requests. But, we've got the amendment, and, we'll see if it passes or not.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
The motion does not prevail. Okay, is there further discussion on the underlying bill? Representative Anderson.
Madam Chair, I believe there are at least two more amendments. I would like to offer the A2.
Okay, great. So Representative Anderson offers the A2 amendment. This is in all of your member packets. Representative Anderson, would you like to give an overview?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Lislegard, I appreciate what you're doing here. This is a significant bill, a major increase, and I think we can feel the excitement in the audience that they're going to get a sizable increase both in LGA and in CPA, and I think that's good. But I just have to kind of rein us back in a second by saying this is going to become base funding. It's a substantial increase, and again would kind of put the legislature on autopilot here in terms of our legislative duties. And your language calls for, really, it's more than just an inflation clause, it's an automatic inflation clause. And if the economy ever settles down again, and it's showing signs that it is slowing down, and there would not be any increase in the CPI or the inflation indexes, this bill still calls for a minimum of a 2.5% increase as an inflation index. I'm concerned about that in just employing conservative numbers and thinking that, yeah, right now we have a lot of money in surplus, $17, $18 billion, and I think that's part of the reason you're able to go as large as you have on the size of the increase. And I applaud you for that. But I am concerned about putting the inflation index in as part of the same bill that guarantees a minimum 2.5 and a max of 5% increase in this formula every year. It is at least an $18 million increase at the bottom end and about a $36 million increase at the full 5% range. So I think the size of the increase and that we're not going to be in these rosy times forever, in my opinion, and I think we need to go carefully ahead. And I think the increase you propose to the baselines of both CPA and LGA is a significant increase, but my amendment would delete the inflation factor clause in your bill, and I would ask for a roll call vote, Madam Chair, and ask that the amendment be approved.
Okay, Representative Anderson requests a roll call vote. Chair Lislegard, comments on the amendment.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and to Representative Anderson. I consider you a friend. You're thoughtful and methodical in your approach, and you're a statesman. But when I look at this and I look at the conversation that we've had just in this meeting, that the last 20 years, we have fallen behind and we continue to fall behind. And regardless if inflation's going to, you know, I mean, was it at 9% right now and it's coming down a little bit? 2.5 to 5%. You know, what is the average? I guess I'll ask nonpartisan. What is the typical year-to-year inflation, right? So 2.5 to 5%. I think that is reasonable, and I think that we don't need to be coming back here in 20 years and needing to do a gigantic bill because we didn't fulfill our obligation and keep up with the times. So maybe I don't need to go there. I think I stated my position. But once again, you're a dear friend. I respect you, and I'm going to encourage people to vote no on this amendment.
Thank you, Chair Lislegard. Mr. Swanson, do you just want to clarify the inflation section of the bill?
Madam Chair and members, the inflation section in the bill is in section 11. And the way the calculation would work is that both the LGA and CPA appropriations would be increased each year. And the amount of that increase would be a percentage change. And that percentage change would be determined by the percentage change of an inflation measure in the previous year, plus the percentage change in the total statewide city population. But that number, that percent, would have to fall in between 2.5% and 5%. So there's a floor of 2.5% and a ceiling of 5% each year.
Great, thank you. Is there further member discussion? Okay, Representative Elkins.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Inflation is inevitable, and ignoring it doesn't make it go away. The main things that cities and counties spend money on are people and construction materials, and the cost of both of those goes up every year, usually a little bit faster than inflation. You know, if public employees are going to maintain their standard of living, their wages are going to go up the same percentage as people and workers in the private sector, and usually that's a little bit higher than the rate of inflation. The cost of construction projects, construction materials has been growing far faster than the rate of inflation of a whole. So if we cap this and don't reflect inflation, we'll gradually creep into the situation where we've been at right now, that we're almost dollar for dollar. Every reduction in local and county government aid results in an increase, a corresponding increase in the levies. That's what we're trying to get ourselves out of.
Great. Thank you, Representative Elkins. And I also do want to uplift Commissioner Cascaden, who started out as a county employee. We want to keep our county employees who have a wealth of institutional knowledge to carry out the good work they do, and they already do take a pay cut as public servants. So thank you for that point, Representative Elkins. Is there further member discussion on the A2 amendment? Okay, and with that, I will bring it back to Representative Johnson to close out. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I think we just basically have a difference of philosophy here, and you know, if we go 20 years without raising LGA and CPA again, that's our fault. That's the fault of the legislature. But things happen. And to the comment that you know, we should let this automatically increase, we could do that with everything. We could leave the education budget on autopilot, and then, you know, we wouldn't have to have discussions on education funding every 2 years. I think that the situations change and dictate flexibility. I guess that's what I'm asking for in this. And I realize how the vote's going to go, but I just feel that in a way we're not doing our duty by looking at these things on a biennial basis. And again, I would encourage a green vote on my amendment.
Okay, Representative Anderson renews his motion to adopt the A2 amendment. There has been a roll call vote requested. So, and the clerk will call the roll.
Chair Lislegard?
This is for the amendment? No.
Chair Lislegard, no. Vice Chair Lee?
No.
Vice Chair Lee, no. Lead Quam?
C.
Lead Quam, aye. Representative Anderson?
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, I. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Representative Burkle, I. Representative Coulter.
No.
Representative Coulter, no. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, no.
Representative Elkins, no. Representative Garofalo. Representative Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Representative Gomez, no. Representative Hollins.
Hollins, no.
Representative Hollins, no. Representative Hewitt. Representative Nelson.
No.
Representative Nelson, no. Representative O'Driscoll. There are 3 ayes and 7 nays.
With 3 ayes and 7 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. So we'll move back to member discussion. I understand there is one last amendment to be offered. Lead Quam.
Madam Chair, I would move A3.
Lead Quam moves to adopt the amendment A3. This is in your member packets for everybody. Lead Quam, would you like to give an overview of the amendment?
Most certainly, I apologize for being a few minutes late to this extended meeting because a few weeks ago I had ARC set up a meeting, and it conflicted with here, and obviously we have several members on both sides that are not able to make this one here, but in that we discussed issues for the disabled community and housing and other things. And what I've noticed for years is that there's a lot of money in LGA that's going out because of old housing. But I continually hear and see groups come in and say, we need this and that and that. We need affordable housing. We need to bring things up to code so that the disabled community can, live in the housing. And frankly, we've got in our formulas the old, the original, this proposed formula, money for old housing because it's an issue. Cities have to expend resources because of old housing. And frankly, why don't we, there's been billions over the decades in the LGA that's because of old housing. Why don't we actually say, use it for urban renewal, use it to take the old neighborhoods, revitalize them so that young families can move in, the disabled community has access. There's a lot that some cities, across the nation and across Minnesota have done to revitalize their old housing and old neighborhoods. But there are some areas that they aren't. So this amendment is to say, we realize that you've got problems and issues because of old housing, and you're getting, in some cases, millions of dollars extra. Spend that for urban renewal. Spend that to revitalize those neighborhoods and portions of the community and fix the problems. And this is just basically saying, let's actually use the money for the reason you're getting it. And I would ask a roll call.
Okay. Lead Quam requests a roll call vote for the A3 amendment. I'm going to go to Chair Lislegard for comments on the amendment first.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and to Representative Quam. I appreciate your words on the importance of housing. I totally agree with you, and I think that if you want to sign on to Mike Howard or Chair Howard's bill, he's passionate too. But when it comes to counties and cities, I think it's up to them. They know what they need, and they know where the investment needs to be in their communities. And so I'm going to ask people to vote no on this. While I appreciate your passion for helping on the housing issue. I just think that this bill needs to be direct to the counties and the cities and not dictate to them what's important in their communities. A no
Great.
vote.
Great. Thank you, Chair Lislegard. Next, I have Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a question for staff. My understanding has always been that pre-1940 housing variable was mostly kind of a proxy for aging infrastructure. Is that understanding correct, or am I off on that?
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Chair and Representative Elkins, I think that's probably a fair way to look at it. These were developed in the last.
Yep.
These factors came up in the last round of revisions to the formula back in 2013. The way that they ended up in the formula is through the regression models that say that these factors predict how much revenue a city needs. What the models don't say is why they need that money. So I think that's one fair explanation for why these factors are in the formulas, but there may be others as well.
Right, so, thank you, Madam Chair. So, better way of putting it is that there seems to be some explanatory power in that variable, but you can't infer directly what the cause is.
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Chair and Representative Elkins, that's correct.
Yeah. And then just a follow-up.
Okay.
So I noticed that
Very quickly, Representative
Very
Elkins.
quickly.
We are very late.
the age of the housing between 1940 and 1970 is being taken out as a variable. Did it lose its predictive value?
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Chair and Representative Elkins, yes, that's correct. So the factors that are in the formula in House File 1377 are they're the statistically significant factors that the models determine predict need, and that one fell out. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. And I think what I'm getting from that discussion is that we are updating our formula to make it more accurate and smarter. So thanks for the question, Representative Elkins. Is there further member discussion on the A3 amendment? Representative Kwong.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to you to close out.
Right. This is the closeout. And if you look at the write-up, you've got pre-1940 housing. And just for clarification, urban renewal does get into water mains, sidewalks, curb and gutter, the fixing the streets. In other words, infrastructure, which totally addresses the point you were making, plus housing. So if we don't think why are we giving them money for this if it's not going to be used on this? Let's not give the money here and specifically give it to programs like reference Howard's bill and others for each of the individual things, or we do it in this form and allow the city to understand they need to do it for water mains this year, they need to do curb and gutter, they need to have low or no interest loans or grants to allow to revitalize housing so that young families can move in. That's empowering them to take care of the issue that we're giving the money for. And that's the intent here, is make it easier to understand where we're giving the money, and then we can look at the results and maybe give more money or adjust the formula. Thank you.
Okay, so Lead Quam renews his motion to amend House File 1377 with the A3 amendment. There's been a roll call vote requested, and so the clerk will call the roll.
Chair Lislegard.
No on the amendment.
Vice Chair Lee.
No.
Sorry. Chair Lislegard, no. Vice Chair Lee.
No.
Vice Chair Lee, no. Lead Quam.
Aye.
Lead Quam, aye. Representative Anderson. Representative Burkle.
Burkle, aye.
Representative Burkle, aye. Representative Coulter.
No.
Representative Coulter, no. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, no.
Representative Elkins, no. Representative Garofalo. Representative Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Representative Gomez, no. Representative Hollins.
Hollins, no.
Representative Hollins, no. Representative Hewitt. Representative Nelson.
Nelson, no.
Representative Nelson, no. Representative O'Driscoll. There are 2 ayes and 7 nays.
With 2 ayes and 7 nays, the motion does not prevail. The A3 amendment is not adopted. Okay, thank you, members. We are now moving back to member discussion of the underlying bill, House File 1377. Want to make sure folks, okay, get in any last words before we move on the bill. Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I know we are obviously way over time here, so I will be quick, and just want to thank Chair Lislegard for bringing this forward. I think we've had a really, really important discussion today about how cities and counties fund the things that they just have to do. And I guess I should start off by saying that if this bill becomes law, my city of Bloomington will get $121,000 in local government aid, which is $120,000 more than I think we've gotten in 20 or 30 years, but amounts to 15/100ths of 1% of a levy increase. So, you know, we're not like making out like bandits here, I guess. But I guess I would just sort of, there's been a lot of discussion today that you would think cities and counties are sort of awash in money and that they're just spending sort of recklessly. And I'm not going to certainly justify every single expenditure that every single city or county has made, including my own. But I guess I would just ask us all to sort of reflect on the last time you went to a truth and taxation hearing. For me, it was last December when I was actually on the city council. And see what our cities and counties do, how they spend these tax dollars. I think, for the most part, I think you'd be really, really impressed. I think you'd see that our local governments are pretty responsible, that they're doing the things we expect them to do with increasingly tight budgets and increasingly challenging ways to fund those priorities. This is a way that, you know, to the chair's point, this is a way that we can address some of those needs. I hope there are others. I have some questions about the particulars of this bill. I would love to learn more about the statistical significance of the pre-1940 housing number. I also think it's a little bit interesting that large cities are 10,000 and over. I don't know that Grand Rapids and Fairmont would consider themselves large cities, but here we are. But on the whole, I think this is a really, really good step, a really important step to address some of the systemic and systematic underinvestment that we've seen in the state for the last 20, 30 years. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Chair Lislegard, would you like to close us out?
Yes, thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion. I want to tell you guys that this is our moment. This is the state of Minnesota's moment to do what's right for our counties and cities who we rely on, and they are our partners. We do have an historic amount of money in the state of Minnesota, and we're falling behind. We're making the counties and the cities fall behind by our lack of commitment to providing the funds that they deserve. We are putting on mandates and expectations, and we're not giving them the resources to do it. And what are we hearing? People are being taxed out of their homes. You have commercial. You have that everything is being shifted over to residential. It is our moment for the state of Minnesota to make this investment, to do what's right for everyone across the state of Minnesota. And it's amazing how much greater Minnesota benefits. We benefit. And so to my greater Minnesota colleagues on this committee, understand that you have Metro colleagues standing with you, trying to give your communities the resources to keep property taxes down. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Right. Thank you, Chair Lislegard. So my apologies. I would not want to go after you, but I didn't see the lead quam, wanted to say a couple words before we move to your motion. So very quickly, because we have one last bill before we adjourn today.
Madam Chair, and looking at the criteria, and we got rid of average household size, which I see as recognizing when there are a lot of children. And I think everybody realizes when you've got a lot of children in the community, there are some extra, costs and things. I appreciate that you're doing the percentage for over 65 because there are additional costs and needs. I just am disappointed that we aren't also looking at the children. And I noticed you got rid of the 63 or 630 cap. So what I saw was, Virginia is around $1,000 per capita. And, you have variations. I like the intent. I understand the need. I think we need to have some consideration with the fact when you go small, medium, well, at 5,000, when you're above that, so 5.
Lead quam. So just for the record, I mean, we are
I
laying
am
the bill
closing,
over.
I know.
We're
but-
laying the bill over, so.
But, Madam Chair, what I want to do is we need a conversation. It's being laid over, and we need to look at fixing this because there's additional transportation funds that kick at 5,000. So that when we look at LGA, I think we're not looking at the global picture, and we need to fix this. I know that, it's once every decade or longer. I do recognize the similarity between 13 and 14 and 23 and 24 in the makeup of the legislature and that. But I would hope that we could have a conversation to maybe improve this. And that's what we're here to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair Lislegard, would you like to renew your motion?
Yes. So moved.
So Chair Lislegard moves that House File 1377 be laid over for possible consideration in the Property Tax Division report. Okay. Chair Lislegard, do you have another motion?
Yes, I would like to move 514 to be possibly included in the tax House division.
Great. So members, we're moving to House File 514. This is also in your packets. Chair Lislegard, would you like to provide an overview of the bill?
Yes. So the City of Virginia is requesting an exemption from the net debt limit due to the need to finance their public safety building. The city received $9.5 million grant from the state of Minnesota, but the estimated project is $31.1 million. Virginia is applying to the U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Development Program for the remainder of the funds, $21.6 million. In order to apply for the loan from the USDA, the City of Virginia must raise their debt limit to match the general obligation pledge. The City of Virginia's current debt limit is only approximately $11.7 million. By statute, which isn't enough to fund the public safety building. This bill would allow Virginia to extend its debt limit in order to apply for enough from the USDA to finish the public safety building. And with me is my dear friend, Mayor Cuffey of Virginia.
Great. Mayor Cuffey, please restate your name and your organization for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity once again to testify on the Virginia bill, and thank you for Representative Lislegard for bringing this forward. We're not asking for any money, which is a good thing. We're just asking for an opportunity to give us a debt limit relief on the debt limit requirements of the state of Minnesota under the Minnesota statute debt limit, which is 3% of the total market value of the property taxes in the city of Virginia. Now, we took the steps to ensure that we didn't have any debt against the city, and that the last one was paid off on February 2nd of this year. So 3% of our market value, estimated 2022, $391,292,600 times 3 gives us a debt ceiling limit in accordance with the statute of $11,738,778. Well, we're applying for a USD loan. In order to do that, we need to provide a bonding. And we need the debt limit exemption in order to accomplish that goal for the $21.6 million. Now, can we fund this in some other way? We might be able to do that, but the cost to the taxpayers, the cost for the interest on the debt, for the bond, and for all the administrative fees is going to be significantly higher. This lessens and reduces the burden on the city taxpayers. It also helps us build this new public safety building, which is blight remediation, neighborhood revitalization, and improving the response time by ALS ambulance service to a maximum of 6 minutes anywhere in the city limits of Virginia. And we do have an ambulance service that has a license that 640 square miles in which we do that. So in order to build this new facility, the old facility was built in 1895. We need this in order to build a facility. We need this obligation and this approval of the debt limit ceiling to raise that just on a one-time basis so we can complete this project. So I'll stand for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mayor Cuffey. Is there member discussion? Okay, Lead Quam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I understand Virginia is a unique case in many fashions. I'm just curious, what are the factors that, in the previous bill, you get just under 1,000 per capita? So I'm trying to understand, because the equations are made to show need, and I'm just trying to better understand Virginia. And obviously, the new formula that Chair Lislegard did is really dialed in to show your needs. So can you explain to us, all those components of why Virginia is, I guess, obviously, according to the new formula being proposed, the most needy city in the state of Minnesota?
Mayor Cuffey, so
Madam Chair, Representative McCollum, hopefully I'll be able to explain this with some clarity and some brevity. The city of Virginia is fortunate to get a significant amount of local government aid, which we use that for a variety of things, all our projects in respect to that. We do use some of our local government aid to do our public safety projects. This is one of them where some of the local government aid will be invested in this public safety. And we have different sources of revenue to help put this together. And so we have infrastructure grant improvements. We have money that comes out of our general fund. We've have some investments that we will be using for this project. We're using the $9.5 million that we received from the legislature from the bonding committee in order to do that. The project cost has ballooned from 2019 to an additional $8 million based on project costs, all those investments with inflation, all those things cause this project to inflate significantly. So even if we use all our local government aid, it still wouldn't be enough money to cover the cost of this project. So we need to find a reasonable way of funding this project and not putting a more significant burden on the taxpayer, and by able to qualify for a loan of $21.6 million from the USDA, the interest rate is significantly lower. The administrative costs are a lot lower, and so that's why we're looking for this one-time debt exemption. We anticipated these questions to come forward, and I think we've done our due diligence with respect to the tax bill. We don't have any debt limit as against we don't have any left. It's all gone. We've retired everything, and so we're leveraging all that. And this public safety building, briefly, we need it because the old fire hall EMS system, 1895 is when it was built. We need a new public safety building for police, fire, training, and to serve the Quad Cities in a 640 square mile area of ambulance service. So I hope that answers your question, Representative Quam.
great. Chair Lislegard to close out.
Thank you so much. This is an important bill to allow them to finish, and they need this to get the money, so I appreciate your support.
Does the chair renew his motion?
Chair renews his motion.
Great. So House File 514 is laid over for possible inclusion in the property tax division report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
Okay. Sorry, I think we're hearing House File 259 first from Chair Olson.
Getting incorrect information from.
Well, I know, but like, whatever, it's fine. I know, it's like, we have 5 minutes for it.
Yeah. Should we just do through this?
Do you want to come?
All right, what's this now?
Yeah, this is, we're getting started, you guys, we gotta like.
Are we done?
We have to get 2 more of those laid over. I can't do it.
All right, what is it? Number?
Sorry, I can't be in 2 places at once.
All right,
Thank
what
you,
number
Mr.
am I
Chair.
Okay, the chair moves House File 875 for possible inclusion into the omnibus tax bill. Representative Becker-Finn, 2-year bill.
Real simple, Mr. Chair, we're just extending a tax exemption for the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. This would have made it through last year had we had a bill. Chair, Representative Davids is my second author, and I hope we can move this forward.
Any member discussion? Hearing none, closing comments.
Please support the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Chair renews his motion to House File 875 to be included in the property tax division report. Next. What's the next one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to say, St. Louis Duluth Days, I want to just say a special thank you for our testifiers who have been here waiting in the room and to make that change before we get started, Mr. Chair.
Wonderful. We don't,
Thank you.
so just to move on, what is the number there? All right. The chair moves House File 259 to be laid over for possible inclusion in the property tax division report. There is an amendment. Would you like to get the bill in your proper order?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chair. I would like to, or I would have someone move the A1 amendment, which is a date change that we need because we're bringing this bill forward, which was a part of the tax bill last year, but need to make the date change.
Wonderful. The chair moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2-year bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. For those on this committee, probably they're familiar with this. This is a tax exemption for St. Anne's Elderly Living Facility in Duluth. And with that, I will probably just turn it over to my testifiers to explain why this bill is needed.
Wonderful. State your name for the record and proceed.
My name is Scott Johnson, and I'm the administrator of St. Anne's. Thank you. St. Anne's basically serves the most impoverished people of Duluth and probably the poorest neighborhood of Duluth. So we're not your typical assisted living facility. 65% of our population is impoverished and requires like public assistance, rent discounts in housing, healthcare to be able to live in our facility and to basically not, be homeless. I think we've always checked all the boxes in terms of need for low-income housing, need for nutrition and food for seniors in the elder community. We've been serving our community for 130 years, and I don't know, the taxation for a nonprofit organization that's mission-based like ours just has always been a giant barrier. It kind of fell to us in the 1980s. We were tax exempt up to that point, and then for lack of a kind of a consolidated license situation that existed for hospitals, nursing homes, senior daycares, boarding cares, we were kind of pitched into the public housing realm, which is not even closely reflective to what we do or what that organization has been for Duluth. So I asked the committee to help remove that barrier for St. Anne's so that we can continue to serve mission and take care of those very needed vulnerable adults in Duluth.
Thank you, and I appreciate you coming all the way down here to give that testimony. People don't care what you know until they know you care, and I can tell your heart is in the right spot. Any member discussion? Representative Anderson.
Thanks, I'll be very quick.
Thank you.
I support this and appreciate what you're doing, but there must be other places in the state that are facing some of the same situations. Can we look at that, a broader basis for helping some of these assisted living places with their tax situation?
Yeah, we'll look at that. Closing comments, Representative Olson.
Thank you, Chair Lislegard, and thank you, members. I just want to say thank you for getting us in this afternoon and hearing from our testifier, so thank you.
Thank you. You never tell the Chair of Ways and Means no.
On the record, thank you.
Thank you. It's on the record. The chair renews his motion that House File 259 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in the Property Tax Division report. All in favor? Aye. Didn't need to do that, but I did it anyway. So, we are adjourned.